Today I'm going to install the Stratos Performance chain tensioner kit on my Royal Enfield Continental GT650. Stratos Performance is out of the United Kingdom. These parts were £62.50 plus 20 pounds to ship. That's about $117 US. It took about 2 weeks to come in. Let's get the bike up on a lift and we'll get with it. To install the chain tensioner kit, the first thing you have to do is get the back wheel just barely off the ground. You really need it to, you want it just touching the ground so that it doesn't move when you pull the axle out, because you're going to tell you have to take the axle out and slide the internal pieces out, slide the new machined internal pieces in when you're assembling this. There's a couple of ways you can do that. You can have a really strong friend hold the bike up for you for a little while. If you have bobbins, you can use one of these to lift the rear wheel and then block the wheel up a little bit so that it's got a little bit of tension on it so that it's not going to drop out of the swing arm. What I'm going to use is a motorcycle lift. These are great. I like them a lot. You do need to be careful when you pick up the Royal Enfield. The stock head pipes are actually a little bit lower than the frame, so you'll want to put a block of wood under here, or 2 blocks of wood, so that you're lifting the bike up by the frame, not by the head pipes. This bike has got, these are revelry pipes. They're actually slightly higher than the frame, so I don't have to worry about that on this one. Stand up, roll the bike forward a little bit. Alright. If you work on your bike much at all, it's great to have one of these. This is, if you live in the US, this is a Harbor Freight. They're under $100. They do have locks on them, so that as you lift the bike up, you can lock the lift into place so the bike will not fall. In this case, I'm not going to do that because I want that back wheel just barely touching the ground so that it does not drop out of the fork. Alright. If it sits here long enough, this hydraulic jack will lower and the bike will fall over. So hopefully it ain't going to be that long. To get the axle out, you need a 24mm socket, a wrench, even a adjustable wrench will work fine. There's a hole on the axle on the other side, on the left hand side. You may need to put a screwdriver in it to keep the axle from turning, particularly after you loosen up the nut. In my case, I'm going to use a little electricity to get it off. You're going to need to slide the axle out. If you manage to get your tension just right on your wheel, it'll probably come right out, or it might not. Put just a little more lift on it. There we go. Now let's see, it'll come right out. There we go. Axle out, sit it someplace where it'll stay clean. Now your adjusters will pop back out. And this is the stock adjuster. It's a plastic cap. This is a stamped steel weldment here. And we're replacing it with this nice machined aluminum piece. And this machined aluminum cap. And they're just going to slide right in there where these pieces came out. Except first, I got to weigh it and see how much weight I'm saving. I had to go find a scale. I got my wife's kitchen scale, which she absolutely loves when I use her kitchen stuff in the shop. The stock tensioner, 176 grams for one side. The Stratos Performance, 90 grams. So 86 grams different. I'll take that. Was it 86 grams? Like three ounces? Yeah, 3 ounces. That's pretty substantial. 6 for both sides, and that's unsprung weight because that's the weight coming off of the swing arm. So unsprung is the weight below the suspension. So that's actually a pretty good savings. It doesn't seem like a whole lot, but particularly for unsprung weight, 6 total ounces is pretty good, or 180 grams. That's a pretty good weight savings. Stratos recommends that you use thread locking compound to keep the screw from backing out. They recommend the Loctite 243, which is also blue Loctite. That's what everybody calls it. This thread locking compound can be broken loose with a tool as opposed to red Loctite, which generally requires heat. So we're just going to put a little bit on the threads of this screw, like that right there. Got the screw, which is a Torx. This is a T45 Torx. I'm going to thread it right in to this. Couple of threads. And then slide the assembly into the swing arm. Once it's in the swing arm, you just take the T45 wrench and kind of line it up with the bearing of the hub, like that. Then you should be able to slide your axle right back in. Like that. Stratos also provides new washers, so one goes on each side, so be sure and put the first one on before you put the axle back in. We'll put our nut back on. We're going to need our screwdriver again. Screwdriver to hold the axle still. I am using an air wrench. Well, this actually is an electric impact, but I'm just going to bring it down till it touches. I'm not actually going to tighten it with the impact. They want the torque for this is 70 Newton meters or 51 foot-pounds. You need to make sure that you've got it adjusted correctly. Make sure that the wheel is centered in the swing arm before you tighten everything up. And then we'll torque this down. So we're going to bring the camera back out of the way so I can double check everything, make sure it's all straight, and then I'll tighten it all up. If everything was correct when you took the axle out and you didn't move the wheel, everything should be correct when you put it back together. You still want to check. I like to check the chain. I've got the bike suspended now, the wheel's actually in the air. I like to take the chain and just push it up against the protector on the bottom of the swing arm, and if it will easily touch against it, I got a decent amount of slack. This is one of those things where you're better off a little loose than a little tight. The more tension you put on that chain, the harder it is on everything. It's harder on the bearings, it's harder on the chain itself, it's harder on the sprocket and the cog. So if you're going to err to the loose side. You can see that the Stratos part has adjuster marks on it, and this swing arm has an indicator mark on it as well. The Stratos marks are even on both parts, and the swing arm mark is identical on both sides. So if you match your marks up side to side, your wheel should be straight in the swing arm. I would still check it. It's a good idea. I just used an inexpensive mic and just mic from the edge of the swing arm to the edge of the rim to get and check both sides. And it is even, so we're going to tighten up the bolt, and then the final step will be Stratos recommends tightening this, just snugging it up to help keep it from loosening, because once you've got the axle tightened up, the only thing that's holding this bolt in place and this cap is the tension of the bolt. That's one of the reasons why they recommend Loctite for it. Alright, we're going to torque this nut down. Once again, that was 70 Newton meters, or 51 foot-pounds. Alright. Last thing we'll do is just snug up both of these Torx bolts here, just to make sure. Once the Loctite cures, they won't be going anywhere. We're just going to make sure that they're snug. That was an easy job. I had posted on Facebook that I was going to be getting the Stratos chain tensioners and putting them on a motorcycle. And a couple of people had messaged just like, why are you doing this? What are you going to get out of it? And some of what you do to your bike, especially if you actually love motorcycles, is you want them to look better. And there's really no argument that the Stratos part looks better than this part. This is, you can't see the stamped metal piece, but you can see the plastic cap and the cheap bolt and the cheap 12mm screws or nuts. And this part looks much better. Machined aluminum, it's got nice anodizing on it, stainless steel screw. It looks really good. I mean, the fanciest part of it is internal. You can't see that, but it's nice machine work. And that's a big part of having a motorcycle is, you know, for many people, is you like the way it looks. And if you own a GT650, you definitely bought it because you liked the way it looked, because it looks like one of those cafe racers from the 60s that you've seen pictures of. The Promenade Percy's or the Ton Up Boys and Ace Cafe and all that good stuff. So we like doing things to our bikes that don't necessarily make the bike any faster or any lighter, you know, but they make the bike look better. And in this case, we also lost a total of 180 grams off of the swing arm, and 180 grams of unsprung weight is significant. That is, will improve the responsiveness of the rear suspension, because you're now not trying to get this weight moving when you hit a bump, or get it moving when the wheel drops into a pothole. And that's almost always better, is less unsprung weight. So I think it's 2 thumbs up. One for that weight reduction, and then the other one because it just looks good. And I like my bike to look good.